I'm getting really good at making how I blew my truck up videos, guys, and it's starting to get old. Here we are, guys. It's part 2 of this series, and we're gonna talk about what happened, why I think it happened. So let's get started. You guys saw in the first video, we added a lot more power. We were out playing around a little bit. In actuality, I was running to the pet store to buy dog food. Had somebody giving me that look at the red light like,
nice car. What's the retail on one of those?
And so I decided to give it a little sauce up the way there, and about a second or two into the pool, boom. Full on smoke show. If you've ever seen a motor blow, you know what the back end looks like. I mean, I spit oil everywhere, could feel everything inside vibrating and rattling around, so I knew right away, we got a blown motor. I got to get pulled over before this thing catches on fire or whatever. Funny enough, I pull into my bank to get off the road. It was total carnage. I mean, you can see from some of the pictures. I wish we had video of the, the actual motor blowing, but we don't. We're sitting there, assessing the situation, and you won't believe what happened to me next, man.
Hold on. I want to tell this because he's not gonna go into.
All right, you tell him.
So Sam is sitting there with the blown up truck. He's obviously devastated because this is going to cost a lot of money. He's already been through this once. He's getting used to it. Well, at least it wasn't like a new sensation. When he was ripping up the road trying to show off for a subscriber, dude did turn out to be a subscriber. Old lady, old man get pissed off and almost flip him off when he blows by him. Truck blows, he gets pulled into the bank. They roll up on him in a Buick. Lady slowly rolls down the window and says,
"Bummer." I rolled the window up and drove off, and I was just like, you gotta be kidding me, man. I just got trolled
by an 85-year-old Buick lady.
Yeah, that happened. So after all of that happened, I had the guy, our subscriber, run me to the house. I mean, I was literally 2 minutes from my house. Got another vehicle, came over and cleaned everything out. At that point, I knew we had to get it towed out of there and everything. I was stuck at a bank parking lot. So we got it towed, brought it here to the garage. I started checking out what my options were. Didn't do a whole lot for about 3 or 4 days. Just let it sit there. Didn't really want to think about it, to be honest. So what do I think caused this? I've already told you, it wasn't tuning, it wasn't the parts. I think that on these 21 and up F150s, there is a problem with the motor that more and more guys are gonna start seeing, and that is cylinder deactivation. A lot of you guys don't understand that, or you guys think that the tuner is gonna pull that out. They get rid of cylinder deactivation. They make it not go into 4-cylinder mode anymore. But you know what they don't do? They can't remove any of those internal parts. And we'll put a little screenshot up here. So this is your valve train. There's a little pin, and it is the only thing that holds that back when it goes into 4-cylinder mode and keeps everything out of the way. I'm not gonna sit and pretend like I know everything about cylinder deactivation. I don't. I know enough to know that there's a little spring and a little pin, and if one of those breaks because of high RPMs, which you're gonna do with a tune, you're gonna raise those up a little bit. We can't rev these as high as the previous gen motors. We've already talked about that. But you're making way more horsepower. So you're putting a whole lot more force on those little bitty parts, way more than Ford intended to happen under normal operating conditions. And we're seeing failures. So as I sit here and film part 2, I still don't know exactly what caused it. We're gonna go make part 3 here in a minute. They're pulling the truck apart, pulling the motor apart so we can see what happened. We'll have a better idea. But I know at this point that my intercooler pump is broken. There wasn't coolant all over the road. There was oil all over the road. So I don't know if something came out of the block and hit that, broke. I mean, guys, I don't know. Brad was here when we had it towed over to 865 Diesel. That's who's working on the truck. And as they were pulling it up on the rollback, he said fluid was going everywhere, lots of it, but it was raining, so you couldn't really tell what it was. It's probably coolant or something at that point, a little bit of oil. But yeah, there's lots of carnage. The first time I blew my motor, it blew with a factory Whipple tune on it But the only reason it blew is because during installation we had some issues, ran all of the coolant through the motor, had a little bit of scarring, and before we got to the first oil change with the Whipple on it, there was so much scarring and everything. We had lost compression. It was running terrible. That's a blown motor without blowing it up. But since we had scarred everything, and what ended up happening, the valve was bad as well in that cylinder. We had bad cats at that point. A lot of you guys have had bad cats blow these up. So we know all the usual suspects. This time it was super catastrophic, and I'm gonna blame it on cylinder deactivation. You can spend a lot of money on these engines. Been looking lately, obviously. They've got built blocks out there right now. You can get a sleeved block, forged rods and pistons, all that good stuff. But what you can't do is fix the problem. And the problem is cylinder deactivation. As long as your valve train's gonna disintegrate at high RPMs under high horsepower, it doesn't matter if you build the bottom end, in my opinion. You just got a really expensive bottom end that is blown at that point when the cylinder deactivation causes issues. So I don't know where I'm gonna go with this at this point. I mean, I'm putting it back together. We know that, right? But where do I take the hammer from now on? That's gonna be in part 3 of this series. I'm looking forward to figuring out what we do myself. I wanna show you underneath this thing just so you can understand how much oil was coming out of this thing when she blew. You can see all this dripping down here. This sucker is wet. I've got oil dripping everywhere. When they dropped this header off, I mean, oil just poured out of it. I've basically got a really nice undercoating on here. I mean, there's oil everywhere on every single thing, all the way out the back. I just wanted to show y'all how catastrophic this actually was. Now let me take you over here to the motor that we've taken out and let you see what that looks like. I do want to show you right here. You see these springs? This is what's different for cylinder deactivation. Right here are 2 solenoids, and when they activate, they lock these springs are under tension and they lock the valve in place. I'm not going to pretend to be some super scientific guy and know everything about it. Those are the parts that are in question on these motors as a failure point, because you don't have that in your normal V8 motors. That's only so you can shut off 4 cylinders at a time. You know, I was thinking that this was going to be the issue, that I was going to open up the covers and we were going to see some damage in here, and it's just not the case. So I was just telling you that I was all in. It's cylinder deactivation for sure. But you know what? We're looking at the valve train here and I don't see anything wrong. So it's definitely, in my case, just the block that's got a big hole in it, and it was definitely a rod or a cracked piston causing catastrophic damage. The heads on the bottom side, there may be some issues under there, but at this point we don't know what was caused first. When you've got piston and rods slapping around in there, there's bound to be a little bit of damage on the underside, but all the springs are in place, all these retainers and everything. Nothing's broke that I can see, so I'm gonna eat my words. Had a heavy foot and blew the motor, and I guess that's that.
If you haven't seen part 1 of this 3-part series, go back and watch that. We'll put it in the end card and down in the description. And you're also going to want to see part 3, because he does have something pretty cool planned. If you want to see this whole build from start to finish, because Sam has invested a ton of time and money in this build to make it as awesome as it is, watch his entire build playlist on the hammer.